Hey, what's up, guys? Today I want to talk a little bit about Evil Dead Burn. I'm a pretty big Evil Dead fan. I wouldn't say like I know every little thing about it. I haven't watched the full show yet, which I know is crazy to say. But I do like the movies. I'm a very big fan of the movies. I love Sam Raimi and I love Bruce Campbell. And these movies still have their fingerprints all over them. So I will continue to talk about them as if they're their movies. So I want to talk a little bit about this movie. I'm not going to spoil much here. I'm going to just talk about the key things that I wanted to talk about and just kind of let you guys decide if you want to see it or not afterwards. But if you enjoy these type of reviews, I do these movie reviews and game reviews, and I also do a lot of gaming on my Twitch channel, so feel free and hit me up on there. I'm always live. Now, when it comes down to it, let's talk about the movie. This movie was cool. It was brutal. It was over the top at times. It had funny moments. If you're an Evil Dead fan, you would probably say, wow, that sounds like the perfect Evil Dead movie, which I would say if you're a fan of the original movies, the original Bruce Campbell, with the just like the, grittiness of it with the practical effects, as well as some goofy moments that are out of place, but fit because it's this movie, because it's this franchise, I would say this might be your favorite Evil Dead movie. I really would say that. I'm somebody I like a little bit more of a grounded Evil Dead. So that's why I like the 2013 one so much more. And I know there's some goofy moments in that one, and there's a lot of crazy deaths in that one too. I'm not saying that the over the topness is a bad thing whatsoever about Burn. I do think there's a couple moments in Burn though where they really try too hard. And it's almost just like Evil Dead normally doesn't have to try that hard. You know what I mean? And that's kind of just you'll see those moments as soon as you see them and you'll go, oh, that's what he was talking about. So I can't say them without actually spoiling that segment of the movie in some way, but there are a couple moments where I was just like, that was unnecessary. But all in all, it has every trope that an Evil Dead movie should probably have. And I think the people who love the originals and didn't really like maybe 2013 or maybe the 2023 or 2023 Rise movie, I think you'd like this one for those moments. But I do think all the things that they did with the intention of being super OG, I think they lacked in what they built in 2013 and Rise. And when I say that, I think the characters, I think the grittiness, and I think the tone of 2013 and Rise outmatch this movie. I think that this movie is the worst of those three, but I think when somebody hears me say that, they're like, oh my God, he thinks this is the worst movie in the franchise. I don't think that's the case, even though I do think this is my least favorite of the movies in the franchise. I think this one is still a very good representation for what Evil Dead is. And I think that OG fans will like it. And I think new fans will like it. But I think if you haven't seen Rise, you're going to have problems with this movie because this movie does take place pretty much right after Rise. I believe it's like within the same year, if that. So make sure if you are new to this, you go and see Evil Dead Rise at the very least, because that movie does have the most implications here on Burn. Usually with Evil Dead, it doesn't seem like there's much of a story that cohesively goes together. It's normally like an anthology of like new people that find the Book of the Dead, read from it like idiots, and then they all die in a horrible way. That's usually the trope here, but they've been slowly building like this kind of universe with the whole thing. And I mean, you could say they've been building universe since the Bruce Campbell days, but I think that they're genuinely trying to actually build like a franchise here, like a real Evil Dead franchise where it's like in order. So I will say I think this is the starting point of that very much. I think Rise was the start, but I think Burn is like where it's really like, this is what we're doing. You can see the clear vision for it. The gore is insane in this movie. The characters, I would say in this one were my least favorite. I think they were all shitty. I think all the characters were like shitty morally, shitty written, or shitty writing wise. Like they weren't like bad writing wise, but they were just kind of like meh. They were just kind of there, and I was kind of rooting for them all to die. And granted, that's normally the case here, but I genuinely felt like in 2013 and Rise, I cared more about the characters before they died, and I cared that they were dying. You know what I mean? And that made it feel more impactful when they would die in the worst way possible. It's almost like in Game of Thrones when you fall in love with the character for so many seasons and then they die horribly. It's how Evil Dead feels sometimes, but it's condensed into an hour and a half. So this movie had a lot more killing, a lot more just brutal like expansion to the entire world. I just think that the characters suck so bad that I was almost just like, yay, they're dead, instead of going, oh no, like it was more moments like that. But there were a lot of moments where I was wincing because there are a lot of brutal fucking kills in this movie where you're like, oh my gosh, like that's insane. There's for example, here's a minor spoiler, I suppose. There's a part where a girl gets a pen lodged into her eardrum, and you can hear the sound of it crunching in her ear, and you can just hear her eardrum pop. And it's just so brutal when she's like trying to tear it out. And it's so like in depth gross that you're like, oh, gross, man. But deep down, that's what Evil Dead is about. It's about the gross nature of it. I mean, if you look at any Sam Raimi movie, and I'm not saying this is a Sam Raimi movie, he was the producer on this. But Sam Raimi, this is his baby practically, and they did copy a lot of tropes that he likes to do in his movies with the weird camera angles, with zooming in on things that are going to be plot points later on. For example, there's a weed whacker that the dad in the beginning of the movie is trying to start, and it won't start, and it keeps zooming in on this thing. It keeps showing the audience that this thing exists. Obviously, it becomes a useful weapon later on in the movie. So things like that are very much like a thing in this movie. Like it happens a lot, and a lot of people might not like that, but that is traditional Evil Dead. And I mean, they do that in every movie, but this one they triple down on it. Like this movie is like very much an Evil Dead movie, and I think because of that, I think a lot of people are going to love this movie. I think the gore, just the all around, just over the top violence. I think it's everything that everybody's looking for. Though I do think there's a few things about the movie that make it not that great compared to the other movies. I think the first 10 minutes of this movie is amazing. I think it's the best Evil Dead we've ever seen. The first 10 minutes, it's absolutely insane. It expands the universe a little bit, and it's just, oh my God, material. Once you start getting to know the characters, it becomes kind of like, who cares? You know what I mean? These characters suck. Their whole plot point sucks. You know, it's like an abusive relationship type of situation with a family that's very traditional and very just like, I don't know, also very like abusive in a lot of ways mentally. It's just characters I didn't like that much whatsoever, so I don't want to go into it too much. But all in all, I was glad to see these characters get what they deserve throughout the whole movie. Though I don't know if I was meant to hate them as much as I did. I just didn't like them. I just really didn't. So the death of them didn't impact me the way it would in the old movies, like I said before. I just didn't care about the characters. And when they were building those characters, I just didn't care. But the movie does get going. Within that first like 20 minutes, it gets going. You know, it starts and it knows what it wants to be and it knows what it wants to keep doing. It is nonstop. Like it is nonstop, just violence the entire movie. And that's cool. You know, that's cool shit. That's what Evil Dead's supposed to be. It gives a lot of background stuff. So people who are coming back to the series, you're going to get a lot of lore dump. Like there's a lot of like hidden things and a lot of things that you're going to like that's going to expand the universe for Evil Dead as a whole. And that's another one of my problems is I would say like this movie definitely, like I said before, it's definitely trying to create something here. And I don't know if I'm going to enjoy Evil Dead nearly as much on an expanded level. This is one of the reasons I haven't really watched the show Ash vs. Evil Dead, because it kind of has more of like that traditional humor mixed with like kind of an more open area where the Deadites are and where there's fights happening, you know, you're in, or a horror movie-esque like apartment complex. You're getting Evil Dead in a more expanded universe. And I think that's where they're going with this universe in general. Though I don't know, and this might be spoiler, going forward, I'm not sure what they're doing because the next movie is Evil Dead Wrath, which comes out next year. And that's supposed to be a direct prequel to the first Evil Dead, the Bruce Campbell Evil Dead. So I don't really know where they can go from here because Evil Dead Burn did end on this like kind of cliffhanger in a way. Hopefully that doesn't spoil much for you guys, but I will say right now, stay for the after credits. There are 2 credit scenes and they are both essential. I would say the one in the middle is pretty good, and then the one at the very end of the credits directly connects with the previous movie. So that's another reason I would say you're gonna be scratching your head a lot if you didn't see Rise, because it is kind of essential. It's kind of the 1A, 1B situation. But I do think this movie is almost as good as Rise. I just think I like the characters and the situations in Rise a little more. I don't like to compare them like this, but that's kind of how Evil Dead is. You know, there's only like 6 movies in the franchise. Technically, I think 5 if you don't count the Evil Dead 1 and 2 remakester type of thing they did. But this has been going since then. You know, it's a universe. It's being created here in front of us, and this isn't like a Jason or a Freddy thing where it's just like, oh well, Jason in space. You know, like they haven't done that with Evil Dead yet. So when it comes down to it, like we're getting chronological type stuff here. So I don't think you have to watch all the old ones to like this one, but I do think you need to watch Rise to like this one. And I think that's the most important part about this review is I don't think a lot of people who are new to the franchise know that. My sister and I, we've seen every Evil Dead movie. She didn't remember Rise that well. So when we went into this one, she was asking a lot of questions. And I don't want you guys to be stuck in that type of situation. Nobody likes to go into something not understanding things. And I think that could be a problem for people. So all in all, though, I thought this was a fun movie. It was from start to finish just a gore fest. I would say the 20% mark gets a little off. And then it is really good for like all the way until maybe the 80% point, and then it somewhat falls off story wise. It tries to go into a different area in the movie. I'm not going to say too much about it, but the last like 20 or 30 minutes was very just like, this is stupid. Like why? Like this is unnecessary. I also did want to say that last like 20 minutes of the movie has some pretty bad CGI. It just feels like such a forced, unnecessary moment in the movie just to like kind of push this like abuse narrative or whatever the fuck it might be. And I mean, I like the tone. I like what they were trying to do here, but just the whole, it was so over the top. It was ridiculous. And that's first thing I think of when I think of this movie is that the last 20 minutes being just really bad. And I think that right there will make people kind of cringe a little bit to this entire movie's existence just because of that last 20 minutes. But, you know, everybody's different about it. Yeah, all in all, I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. I thought it worked. You know, it did what it was trying to do, and you know, it accomplished, you know, the gore fest that it was trying to be. I didn't love the characters. I more so liked the Deadites. I liked what the characters turned into from the Deadite perspective. I thought they were really cool. I thought like the main Deadite of this one, which was like the dad, he's the first one to get infected here, and he is the most, he's very like fucking crazy. Like he's nuts. He's absolutely insane. And you already not liking him kind of enhances how crazy he is. You know, there's some really cool key moments with him where you're like, wow, this is holy shit type of moments, you know, similar to like in 2013 when the Deadite cuts her tongue in half, or just in general, like in this one, like there's the part where I'm sure you see it in the preview where the Deadite like drinks the candle wax, the hot candle wax, and it's just like, wow, that's insanity. There's some good moments with the dad in this one where he does that as well. I would say normally with Evil Dead, normally like the main Deadite is normally the most fun character in the movie. I wouldn't say he was the best Deadite out of all the main first Deadites in these movies, but I do think he was good enough. He was sufficient. All in all, though, I would give this movie like a 7. I think it's a 7. I think it's fine. You know, it's bearable. It works. I had fun watching it. You can poke holes in a lot of stuff in this movie, but I think as a whole, I think it's fine. You know, I think it works. I still think 2013 is my favorite. I'd probably give that like a 9 out of 10 because I've gone back and I've enjoyed that movie every time I watch it. When it comes to Rise, I'd still probably give it like an 8, maybe an 8.5. Just depends on the day of the week and how I'm feeling. But I do like that one still. I like the main Deadite in that one. I like the characters as a whole. And I really like the apartment complex theme of that one. With this one, though, this one just seemed like, you know, just straight up Evil Dead. You know, it was just a lot of messy gore, a lot of messy moments, a lot of goofy moments that I personally don't love, but they're still funny enough to where people of the original will still like. I like the camera in this one. I liked the costumes. I thought they looked good. I thought the makeup looked really good on the Deadites. All in all, though, there was just a lot of chunks of this movie that I was like, didn't need to be in the movie. And I'm at the point now where I don't know where it's going, so I'm a little bit kind of worried about just the future of the entire series. I'm not sure where they're going to go with it. Like I said, the new one that's coming out is going to be called Wrath, and that one's going to take place before the first Evil Dead movie, the first ever Evil Dead movie, which makes me feel like they're maybe setting up a way to change those original movies, maybe remake those originals and kind of tie them into this newer universe that they've created. Considering it's about multiple books, it's not just about the one book of the dead anymore, it's about multiple books. So when it comes down to it, I think this is like a 7, maybe 6.5, 7. Just depends on you know what kind of fan you are and what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a gore fest, if you're looking for something that you can turn your brain off and just laugh at, this works. This is that kind of movie. So if you enjoyed this review, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, because I do reviews on movies, games, and I do a lot of streaming as well. All in all, though, you know, that's really it. And the next movie review you guys are probably going to get from me is either going to be Jackass or probably The Odyssey. I'm going to see The Odyssey tomorrow, so we'll talk all about how woke it is or whatever you guys are upset about. But all in all, we're not going to talk about that actually because that shit don't matter. When it comes down to it, though, have a good night. Love you guys. Bye.